I call it from awareness to intervention, but it's even larger than that, the scope of potential purpose we can have for between game and humanitarian. A quick presentation. Before coming to video game, I was into making shortcuts, theater shows, and I worked in particular for theater show for several years. And but I was really in love with video game, and I wrote the first book about designing games, even if I was not game designer at the time. But I met a lot of people doing video games, and after that I went into the industry. I worked for 15 years in the video game industry, pure entertainment video games for 15 years. And after that, I joined the academic world because I was really interested by research on game. And currently I am at the Cologne Game Lab, that is an institute of the Applied Science University of Cologne. And what the topic that I investigate the most is how we can pick up model from game design, from making games, and apply them to other fields. For instance, psychology. And I did my PhD on connection between game and psychology, for instance. Here there are 3 examples of game I work on. Le Village aux Oiseaux, it's a game for cognitive training of Alzheimer patients. Je Serai is a game that is establish your professional preference for career orientation, vocational guidance. And Entourage and the Letters is a game for children refugees that teach them Arabic, their mother language, and also do psychosocial support. So that this is some of the project I work on. So about our topic today. In fact, since several years, even I guess more than 20 years, games are used by humanitarian organizations on the field to provide some psychosocial support to the children. Here, there is 2 examples, one from Terre des Hommes, another one from UNICEF. That's how we can use game, like playing in an open ground or playing with the children. I'm talking about non-digital games here. And also, we had some example in the past of games that were here to help stakeholders of humanitarian situation to work together and understand better the situation. Here, this is this really great game called ISIS Crisis, where you have 7 different factions, and each group of players is one of the faction, and you have a Doctor Without Border, for instance, but you can also be ISIS itself, and so you have every group has its own agenda and try to survive in this context. So it's a good way to have an understanding of these complex systems. And also I have another example called Aftershock that is well known now, that was used to train people in the humanitarian field. But when it comes to video game, when I start to make my little investigation, the oldest example I found was from 2006, and this first game of Darfur Dying. And the most recent game, like Entourage and the Letters, are more likely to go directly on the field. So I had this span, and the 2 big topics, like, okay, we have awareness of a specific situation and deep impact on the crisis situation. I have those 2 purposes, but in fact, there are many more. And this is a list of all the purpose we can have from pure entertainment game to intervention field. And I will go to a few examples. And also we have other criteria that are interesting to try to sort out games connected to humanitarian, like what is the kind of audience, what is the funding sources, what are the funding sources, and the area of diffusion or impact. So at the end, I will have a table with everything done, and now I will give you example for each of the purpose. For instance, we have entertainment video game like Final Fantasy 15, that use the context of a humanitarian crisis as an entertainment places. Like in this game, you have to find a refugee and help them in a field, and you have to meet them all. So this is purely a game that is funded by game companies and clients that buy, and gamer that pay the game, in fact. And the diffusion, it's broad for everyone. I have a second example of game. It's Neverwinter. It's a MMORPG, multiple player role-playing game online. And in this one, you have even a full wall that is dedicated to a place where there is a war, and you have to help a community of refugees that are fleeing this war. So it's present here again. That's for the first thing. And I think there are many more examples, but those two are well known. Then you have art installation about the refugee statue, for instance, or about a crisis in particular. Not in particular, in fact. This category of games are the ones that are disconnected from the reality. They don't show exactly a situation or a specific context, but they are talking about the topic, about topics connected to a humanitarian purpose. And it could have the form of an installation in a museum, for instance, or during an event. Here, for instance, there is North. It's one of these, it was a demo during the art game demo about a refugee in Lyon 2 years ago. And in this application, in this installation, you are confronted to the look of other people that, and to try to make you feel like a refugee, in fact, in another country. There is here another one called Fuir la guerre, Flee the War. It's a pure metaphoric installation about fleeing the war. So you have this kind of art installation there. Then you have, and it's growing, we have now all these games that try to raise awareness about a situation. I take as a first example, Passenger. It's very interesting. It was made by people who create after that Reigns, one of the best-seller game on mobile. And they, in this game, in Passenger, in fact, you embody someone that is a smuggler, someone who helped people to travel from North Africa or Middle East to Europe. And at the very beginning of the game, it was the experience is very short. And at the very beginning of the game, you can, as you can see on the right image, you can have information about the refugee as they are going in your boat to go on the other side of Mediterranean. But the thing is, the more you play, the more you don't care. Because the only thing you care at after a moment, it's okay, how many people I can put in my boat, how much I ask them to pay, etc., to make it profitable. So it's in a way, it illustrates quite well the dehumanization of refugees. And so it was a very interesting short game. And they made it something in 48 hours. It was really like a quick-made game to raise awareness. We have other example with game a bit more complete and with a larger experience, like 21 days. And it's about, this game is about the situation of a refugee arriving in a new city and trying to understand other people and try to find a way to get money to have his family coming. And here there is an example of gameplay on the screen where you have discussion with people, but some of the word you don't understand them. So you are not able to know what the people are telling to you, and it progresses in the game. You can eventually improve that, but yeah, it's not great. So it's an example of the kind of gameplay you can have in the game, understand things even if you don't have all the cue. And a last example of awareness, it's a game that wins a lot of prize. So it's called Bury Me My Love. In fact, it simulates the discussion between someone remaining in Aleppo and someone that is trying to reach Europe. So you are the husband remaining in the Syrian city, and Noor, your wife, is traveling to Europe and meet many situations. And in real time, you have sometimes some message from her, and you can have a discussion, help eventually to make a strong decision because they are emotionally strong. And you have to share that with her and know how you can go out of this situation. But it's a really narrative-oriented experience, but quite demonstrative on the fate of the refugee going to Europe. So we have this kind of awareness game. And then the common point between these three ones, like Passenger, 21 Day, or Bury Me My Love, it's these games were initiated by artists. They wanted to talk about this specific situation. When we go a bit further and closest to the situation, we have games who were made with the support of organization or required by NGO who wanted to create an awareness about something. The first example, the oldest I found, is Darfur is Dying. In Darfur is Dying, you try to help a family to survive the situation, a critical situation in Darfur in 2005-06, And this is one of the first games that try to raise awareness of people, and it works well. I mean, it's a very short game, and you can in 5 minutes understand the big stake of surviving this situation, and it's you die very, very quickly and easy in this game. So it's a really interesting, for us it's a milestone. It's one of the first time that an NGO work with people who make games to convey a message. There is this very interesting example also in the same kind of purpose, awareness of a specific situation. This example was made by Amnesty International. In fact, you start to play the game, you launch it, and you have this game called Battle Kid. And you have a very small kid, like you can see on the screen right now, and you can customize this kid by giving him some weapons, some protection, and things like that. And at the moment you are ready to fight, then you have a message you click to go to fight, to accept your customization. Then you have a message from Amnesty saying, "War child is not a play." And it just catch you with some kind of normal starting point for a game, and use that to raise awareness about children that are actually fighting and in wars. So that was a very interesting example. It's not a game by itself. It's in fact just an interactive customization of a character, but they use the game culture to create awareness. Then we have a bit closer to the situation. We have games that are here to promote the role of the nonprofit. And the World Food Program, for instance, they made 2 games called Food Force 1 and 2. And in these 2 games, for instance, you can by yourself go to the different steps of establish a food program for a crisis situation, like identifying the number of persons and tribes of you have to feed. Then you have a budget, and you need to create what means 1 meal for 1 person per day, and then you have to distribute it on the field. So that was one. This game there was 2 opus, and it's also a well-known first of its genre. Okay. Then after that we have fundraising. So here it has a even more direct impact on the crisis. And one of the oldest examples, it comes from Farmville. So Farmville is a game that is here purely for entertainment. But when there was this huge earthquake in Haiti, they create specific items in the game that you can buy, and the money goes to the World Food Program. And so that was one of the first say experience of trying to raising money for an organization through a game. Even if it's a pure entertainment game at the beginning, the purpose of the game just changed for a certain period. And we have here another example. It's a collaboration between the International Red Cross and a game company who that is creating a famous first-person shooter called Arma. And they create an extension for the game called Laws of War. And this extension helped to raise funding for the Red Cross, and also promote the action of Red Cross, and say why the Geneva the laws of war are important, and not shooting on someone that is wounded, not shooting on the people who are on the field to help the wounded person, etc. You have many rules like this. So it's a very interesting example that is mixing, again, people from video game and an organization to reach this point of fundraising. Then there are also some examples. So I take this one from Terrorism because it works quite well, I think. And it's how we can use game or gamification to help the people on the field to work. And the ChildHub, maybe we will talk about it later on, so I will be very short. ChildHub is just a website to, and also correct me if I'm wrong, it's a website where people who are working on the child protection in different countries in the Eastern Europe, it's a place to share knowledge and practice. And to create more engagement, they gamified the content with badges, award, mini quest, and things like that. And in fact, it works. It improved the engagement of people on the website and the sharing of knowledge. So it's one of a good example for that. Here, we also then have another step that is try to prevent or to assist after a crisis. So it's not really exactly it could be also inside, but you have sometimes games made to prevent or to help if people just after a crisis. Here, there is this example. It didn't exceed the level of a prototype. It was tested on the field, but just like a prototype. The name, what's his name already? I forget the name of this game. Sorry, but in fact, it was just a prototype. In fact, the goal of this game was to help women in Nepal after the earthquake to decide, for the isolated women in villages, to decide if they have to go to the hospital or not regarding certain symptoms of herself when they are pregnant or or the symptom of their children. So in fact, it's some kind of training games when we help you to auto-diagnose the situation, because you cannot there is no doctor around you, so you have to take decision by yourself. So the game train you to take the right decision, because moving from a villages to reach a place where there are some medical assistance could take several hours in the mountain, and it's dangerous. So you don't take this decision, it's not trivial. So that's the application. As everyone has a mobile phone, it was a good idea to use mobile phone to promote that. I don't know where they are now on this project, but the name was Mantra. And I don't know where they are now, but at least the initiative was interesting. And here, again, we have an example from Terre des Hommes, because you're active on this field. Play with Natif, again, is a game that is on the field and try to prevent some problems, in particular on the field of hygiene. And here on Tour and the Letters, the game that we did at the Cologne Game Lab, it's a game that is really acting into the crisis itself to support the children on a psychological level, and also to help them to catch on what they miss at school. And with at the basic, how to read your own language. So that's for the like a spectrum of game, and you will have the presentation with all the different definition and example of games, so it can be helpful to you to share that with your colleague and say, this is all the thing we can do with between game and humanitarian. And here an example. I put all the games I cite in order of dates, in fact, with a chronology to see the progression. And we see that starting 2015, we have a lot of examples. So it's something that is growing faster and faster. The game are more and more applied on the field. So to finish that, I just want to go to a certain principle. It's at the moment, games are used as intervention tool on the field. Then they have to adopt certain principle, like neutrality, respect of culture, do no harm principle, these things. So when we design games for the field, we are like any other intervention tool. We need to have our game design adapted to that. And here I can give you some examples coming from Entourage. So first, we did a lot of connection with the refugee and the people and the Syrian parents during all the creation of the game. And we have many different type of player-centered approach, like a persona focus group, playtest, study of the network, understand what is the ecosystem of the refugees, and field evaluation, etc. So we had a lot of different tools to better understand our target. Most of the team, even if a big part of the team were Arabic speaking or from Arabic culture, none of us was 5 to 10-year-old Syrian refugee children just going through war. So we had to catch that and meet them and understand them and making the thing good for them. Here, with an example for Entourage also, at the very beginning of the game, of the development of the game, we were only 4 persons on it, and 3 of them were Syrian. So it was 3 colleagues from different environments, the Conservatoire National des Arts Métiers and other organizations. And we work all together on the design. So even the name of the game, so Entourage, it's come from a pre-Islamic character called Antar. And it was some kind of poet, a bully poet, a Robin Hood and a poet at the same time, if you want. And so Entourage is the nice, cute version of this name. So we did it like this. And after that, we met also many challenges due to the specificity of this game. And for instance, we had this meme, like people saying, okay, but Muslims don't like dogs. You know, it's something like, yeah, because the Quran, blah, blah, blah. And we made some investigation, and we asked to have a media study. And you see the two pictures here, they are coming from someone who sent us images from Saudi Arabia during the Ramadan. So you have the little sign of the Ramadan on the screen with those dogs characters for children. And also here, we make a survey with close to 200 persons participating for parents. And we asked to the parents of children between 5 and 10, do you mind if your children is playing with a dog in a video game? And they say yes, it's okay for 91%, and the 9% remaining, they are not responding no because of cultural issue. It's just because they say things like, yeah, but why not a cat or a panda? No, it was not like the dog was not the problem at all. So we had to do that to answer the people who say to us, yeah, Muslims don't like dogs. Okay, so. And here another issue and we make this mistake and we totally assume it. And it's gender and dialogues. In Arabic, the you is gender, so it means that you have a you male, a you female. And I don't know that. I didn't know that. And even if we had 40% of our team who were Arabic, they only tell us, oh, by the way, we are addressing the people with the masculine form, because we wrote all the scenario in English and we make it translate by some Arabic writers. And they only translate it with the male form, so not the female. And they say to us, the morning of a day, I had a presentation to do at the game developer conference about Entourage to talk about our inclusion and everything. So it was quite funny. You see my face on this image. I was not very happy because we just learned this problem. So that the game only addressed the male, and we changed it for sure. It was the beta version, so we had some time to change it for the general version, but it was quite a tricky moment. Okay, so, and one of the funny things is just after me, someone was in the same conference was talking about this problem of translating the game just for male, because it's the practice. You know, most of game done for Middle East are just translated with the male version. So they did, these people were trying to make that change, and so we did it. We changed it too. About the neutrality of communication, I just want to share also some element like this one. When we start to work, we try to investigate, to make a list of all the Facebook pages, all the group forum we can find about refugee, and in particular in the Syrian situation. And we make a big list of them. And then we ask to some expert to go through these pages to know if we can use them as a communication platform and say, hey, we have this game for your children. Can you communicate to your group, to your member, the existence of this game? And but before doing that, we had to go through all of these and know if they are committed in one side or another of the fighting camps and faction, because we cannot support doing it if these people are not, if the organizer of these pages or Facebook or forum, whatever, are neutral. We need to only communicate with people who are neutral. So, and it was a problem, in fact, because at the end we didn't get much potential partner for the distribution. And also in terms of communication, at the end we decide to do the most of the communication by ourselves using digital communication on Facebook, YouTube, Google, spending some ads. In fact, we had a total budget of 40,000 euro, including 25,000 coming from a donation from Facebook. They give us some free advertising money. And what we do is we create some very localized communication. Localized when I mean in terms of space, in geography. And we choose the location where there are the most refugees in the MENA region. And this data come from the HCR, the High Committee of Refugee, and then we communicate there, and we were looking demographic, like parents of young children reading news about Syria, for instance. And when we find that, then the the communication was done. And it works quite well because at the end we are close now to 300,000 downloads. So I think it's a good proportion, and in terms of cost in marketing, it's worth it. I mean, for €1, you can have up to 10 persons installing the game if you are doing well. So that's it's something we don't think maybe at the beginning of some project, but we should keep money for that. If you don't keep money for communication, at the end you will not exist in the eyes of the people. So, and neutrality of communication. We also had. I just finished with that. We just have this. This is also another example that was challenging for us. We were looking for artists coming from Syria to participate and make all the voiceover of the character in the game. And and Fares here is a famous Syrian actor. He used to play in the most famous sitcom in Syria before war. But he is engaged in terms of opinion. He's against Bashar al-Assad, for instance. He's not. He has some political opinions, but he's also one of the most known actors of Syria. So we decide, even if he's engaged, to work with him, but just as an actor and not as a representation of our opinion. The game remain neutral. But yeah. So that's maybe something we should have done in a different way, but at the moment it's a decision we used to take. Okay, then a little conclusion. So as you saw, there are many different purposes of connection between game and humanitarian. And no, it's totally legitimate to say we can use game to have an impact. And that's seen more real in the recent year. But and here another photo. So it's not to do self-promotion, but to explain something that is happening currently in big NGOs. The fact is that they start to work with game, really. I mean, Terre des Hommes is an example, but also the French Red Cross have initiative with video games recently. The Spanish Red Cross, they just reward us so this is the reward you see on the screen. It's a prize about innovation for humanitarian, not about game, innovation about humanitarian. So they just consider, oh yes, then game could be a part of the solution. So that was for us very interesting because we are still preaching, say, hey, video games are good, extra. So having these feedbacks are interesting. I saw some initiative run by UNICEF also at the Game for Change conference in New York. Someone presented, and you have other organizations working actively on the field of using game in a humanitarian situation. So now it's growing and interesting. Yeah, so that's it for me. Here are a few information if you want to get more info about Entourage, or if you want to contact us at the Cologne Game Lab. That's it for me.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for your very interesting presentation. Before I give floor to Alexandra, there is one question in the chat box. First is for which organization are you developing this kind of tool? But the person said that they see you had it in the slide, the list of organization. There is a question: is it hard to fund this kind of services? Everything sounds really interesting, but I'm thinking, can NGO fund for this?
In our case, we had we answered to an international call. Entourage was an international call launched by the Norwegian government. They wanted to have game to supply the lake of school. So and we win the call and we get money to make the game. You also have sometime European budget about and you can apply for them. You have to check what are the calls in European call, and I know that several organizations fund their game with that. But yes, what we can say directly, most of these games are made with either with a public funding or they are made by people on the side of what they do. I give you another example. We have currently a group of students at the Cologne Game Lab working with Terre des Hommes on a game, and it's just a free collaboration between the two organizations, and nobody is really paid specifically to do that. So it's a part of the activity of our students, a part of the activity of the people, some people at Terre des Hommes. So yeah, that's a problem. I mean, we still need to find a fund. But even sometimes the fund, or you can have small piece of money using the communication budget of an intervention. So if an organization has 100,000 for communication, then you say, okay, let's use 50,000 to try to make a game or something that can help to aware about the situation. So that's also a case that I heard about. And and for some organizations, for instance, the French Red Cross, they directly funded something. They have a budget internally, and they decide to invest in game with a stand budget. So it was a decision. But I mean, the network of people using game for a humanitarian situation is not yet well framed and made. So it's also why we are Cologne Game Lab is start to create a new conference about game and humanitarian to start to crystallize that, because we don't have much place to share.
Yeah.
Knowledge.
Yes.
Either on practice, then on funding, on any aspect. So we have to create this event, in fact.
Yeah. So this is the plan for the future, also to advocacy to change that. Yes, thank you very much for the answers. I believe there is also a big place for creativity among NGOs and other organizations if they found this kind of communication and tools to work with their area of work. So it is the place for creativity how to make this kind of funds to involve with it. Okay, I believe that Alexandra is next to share her information.
So I stopped my sharing. Huh?
Yeah, you can stop it, and I believe Alexandra is here with us, so she can share her screen. Yeah, great.
Hi, thank you, Emmanuel, for sharing that. That was really interesting. And yeah, so part of the reason I'm Alex. I work with Terre des Hommes as the Regional Innovation Manager in Europe. And part of the reason we invited Emmanuel and wanted to put together this webinar was because within Terre des Hommes, we have a gamification working group. And essentially what that is we get people who are interested in gamification together. We bring in different experts in the field to kind of share the work that they've done and also see where we can collaborate on projects, come up with new ideas. And I'm going to send all of you more information about that after the fact, but we're looking to open it up to people who are external to Terre des Hommes. And so the commitment is really to participate once a month in like 1 to 2 hour Skype session where we have these meetings. And that's it, and get to know other people interested in gamification and develop project ideas, strategies, go after funding together. I'll stop there if anyone has any questions about that. Otherwise, we'll send you, if you're interested, we'll send you a form with a link that you could sign up after this call.
Thank you, Alexandra. Yes, she will share a link with me, and I have all your emails who registered through the ChildHub and who are here with us in the room today. And I will be able to share with you the link. And I believe if you have any kind of questions, Alexandra, they can also contact you, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to share your email maybe in the chat box to be also visible? Yes. So I find this webinar very interesting because I'm here in the ChildHub from the beginning, and I have been looking at the ChildHub, how the platform was developing through the years, and I love this gamification possibility. I see that the participants are more involved through this way of communication, and I really see this as a future. Well, the present, of course, in some ways, but also as a future to some organization who are working with different types of clients. I would say with children mostly. Do you have also any kind of special special games that are working with the children now that you would like to share? There is a I remember that we did, and you were talking about the Story Lab, and there were also some kind of games that were developed in the ChildHub. that are for professionals. Maybe you have some kind of examples that participants here can share also and work with the children or among the professional that they can use for free.
You're talking to Alexandra, I guess.
Yes.
Your microphone.
Microphone, yeah.
Sorry, I was responding to your question. Yeah, so right now the ChildHub has more like gamification elements on the actual hub, and then it hosts games that have been developed. So Story Lab was out there, but I think right now we're doing, as Emmanuel mentioned, like we're doing a version 2 of it.
Okay.
So the idea will be to release that again. But if you go on the ChildHub, gamification is already integrated in the sense that there's like different points and like leaderboards. So it's not a game, but it has these elements in it to kind of push interaction and different types of behavior.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So I think there was a Kristen, she had some question, but I see Alexandra, yes.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
To you, in fact, is how we share the presentation with the people?
Yes, we will upload the presentation. You can send it to me on my email, and I will upload to the ChildHub. And all the people who registered for the webinar will get an email. In that moment, we upload the materials on the ChildHub. So they will be able to see the presentation and also to see the recording for free, and also to share it among other professionals and on social networks also.